Right out of the gate, our broadcast has ruthlessly exposed the disastrous incompetence and staggering leadership failures haunting Puma County Sheriff Christopher Nanos throughout the Nancy Guthrie vanishing. Tonight brings a completely horrifying twist. As we confirm, a local precinct officer now sits securely behind bars. He faces intense allegations of unlawful abduction and severe workplace misconduct. Local correspondent Alex Medina provides further details live from the main precinct of that embattled law enforcement agency. Just days ago, this sworn officer walked these halls under the guise of public safety. But today he faces serious criminal accusations. Snatching someone against their will is never a mere misunderstanding for a cop, especially not a patrolman stationed at the exact agency spearheading the desperate search for a missing 84-year-old senior citizen. You absolutely rarely see this amidst massive federal manhunts, nor within any community enduring relentless nationwide scrutiny since the 1st of February. City law enforcement officially apprehended 22-year-old precinct officer Travis Reynolds on the 26th of March, 2026. Facing severe abduction accusations, he stood before a magistrate the very next day, where bail was firmly established at $200,000. Before the courtroom proceedings even wrapped up, his command structure had officially terminated his employment. The exact precinct acting as the tip of the spear in locating Nancy Guthrie suddenly saw their own patrolman processed for abduction. Let the sheer gravity of that sink in, as taking him into custody exposes far more than a single bad apple acting alone. We are actually getting a glaring look at the foundational rot within the exact police unit tasked with bringing the missing matriarch back to her loved ones. Grasping the entire overarching situation from the crumbling leadership and formal votes of extreme distrust to the forensic testing nightmares happening internally. Add those baffling, inconsistent media briefings to the mix, and hauling Travis Reynolds away in handcuffs no longer resembles some random fluke. Instead, it presents as a deeply rooted warning sign. Our breakdown today explores exactly what this red flag reveals and what it totally obscures, with the stakes resting this incredibly high. Distinguishing between established facts and wild assumptions carries massive weight. We must outline the events with absolute clarity, as total accuracy is non-negotiable here. Consider the facts surrounding Travis Reynolds, an active duty officer operating out of the local precinct. This is the specific force governed by Commander Chris Nanos, standing as the principal investigative unit handling the Nancy Guthrie crisis from the very moment she vanished without a trace. Interestingly, the precinct did not launch an inquiry or detain their own guy. The city's municipal police force handled the apprehension, meaning an entirely different jurisdiction intervened, which undeniably speaks volumes. That alone serves as a massive red flag, proving their in-house oversight protocols completely failed to detect the issue. Let us review the formal accusations laid out in court. While working his shift, Reynolds took a female suspect toward the regional lockup, executing an incredibly routine task, at least according to legal filings and extensive reviews by KD, TV, and prominent nationwide broadcasters. The terrifying events supposedly unfolding inside his cruiser during that specific drive are exactly what triggered the unlawful detainment accusations. Court filings claim he made highly inappropriate remarks about her physical appearance as she remained completely restrained in the rear passenger seat. Reports suggest the two passed an electronic cigarette back and forth before he proposed a sinister deal, offering to skip her hearings and fix her legal troubles if she accompanied him to a motel for intimacy. Despite her direct pleas to simply be booked into the facility, the patrolman reportedly refused, leaving her trapped in the cruiser as she witnessed numerous other cops escorting their suspects through the doors. Lacking any prior criminal record, she had absolutely no clue how processing typically worked, leaving her completely unaware of how incredibly wrong and abnormal the situation actually was. Official documents state she grew increasingly confused by the intense delay, constantly observing various law enforcement personnel moving in and out with their respective suspects while she stayed confined to the back seat. The document asserts he displayed extremely graphic content on his screen, and when she practically begged to be processed again, he demanded she expose her chest, prompting her to surrender to his demands. Following that horrific violation, he finally escorted her into the processing center, and security cameras covering the facility actually backed up several key elements of her horrifying narrative. During his subsequent interrogation, the accused officer casually claimed he could neither confirm nor deny discussing intimate acts with the detainee or displaying the graphic recordings. Tossing out a chillingly vague response, such an incredibly evasive answer came straight from a 22-year-old badge wearer regarding horrendous actions supposedly committed mid-shift, fully geared up, while actively trapping an incapacitated civilian inside his locked cruiser. Precinct leadership officially verified his immediate dismissal right after the municipal force alerted them to the criminal apprehension. Resulting in an incredibly swift firing of the disgraced employee, authorities currently hold the disgraced cop under a $200,000 bail mandate, though officials absolutely refuse to formally tie him to the Nancy Guthrie mystery at this stage. Absolutely zero forensic links exist between the ex-patrolman and the missing woman's ongoing dilemma, and we vow to stick strictly to the proven evidence. However, we must ruthlessly clarify exactly why a completely separate caller holds massive weight regarding the broader manhunt. Even lacking direct ties, the situation speaks volumes, revealing critical undertones that mainstream media outlets completely fail to recognize or explore. Moving forward, grasping a pair of conflicting realities without blurring them together into a single narrative remains an absolute necessity for everyone watching. The disgraced officer remains completely isolated from the vanishing of Nancy Guthrie, which serves as our absolute baseline truth, and we refuse to deviate from that standard. Yet, distinguishing between the cop actively participating in the senior citizen's kidnapping versus his downfall severely impacting the broader search effort highlights two drastically different scenarios. That latter point stands incredibly firm no matter what future evidence reveals, mainly because the embattled precinct serves as the primary driver of this entire gripping saga. They firmly command the operation, with Commander Chris Nanos standing tall as the ultimate spokesperson guiding the narrative since the very beginning. His personnel actively manage the local door-to-door sweeps while constantly liaising with agents from the FBI. They strictly oversee the forensic zones, camera footage acquisitions, civilian call centers, and media briefings. When their own guy catches charges for weaponizing his hard-earned authority, exploiting a law enforcement uniform and overwhelming physical dominance to allegedly subjugate a completely restrained captive, heavily taints the exact same atmosphere surrounding their highest-profile active mystery. This devastating betrayal occurred deep within their own ranks, targeting a profoundly broken system that began crumbling long before anyone hauled Reynolds off in handcuffs. The shockwave of the Reynolds bust makes zero sense until you look at the absolute chaos consuming the Puma County Sheriff's Department long before March 26th. This agency was already bleeding out. Locals and watchdogs alike were openly ripping into the sluggish probe and the complete blackout of honest updates, calling out the glaring contradictions between the sheriff's official press briefings and the grim reality leaking from back channels. Furious internet forums quickly mobilized, demanding an immediate recall to oust Nanos completely. Launching an ouster movement against an active sheriff during a massive federal manhunt is no small hiccup. It signals a catastrophic breakdown of public faith. Journalists on the beat repeatedly flagged exact instances where the sheriff's official narrative violently clashed with solid outside intel. Back in February, the sheriff boldly claimed detectives had absolutely stopped hunting for fresh suspects. Meanwhile, neighborhood shop owners revealed feds were actively flashing photos and tossing out names. Someone inside headquarters was clearly lying through their teeth. His own squad slammed him with a unanimous no-confidence vote, publicly demanding his resignation. Let that sink in. 100% agreement. Every single voting officer officially stated they had absolutely zero faith in the commander steering this massive manhunt. Right in the middle of one of the country's most famous abduction crises. That was the absolute dumpster fire burning at the Puma County precinct before Travis Reynolds ever got cuffed. Throw his scandalous collar onto the massive pile, a sworn officer supposedly abusing his badge to trap and terrorize a female suspect who was actually detained by a completely separate outside agency. The most crucial, disturbing element hiding inside this rogue cop narrative requires intense scrutiny, and it actually avoids the flashy headlines entirely. It centers on the survivor's explanation of her delayed reaction. Having zero criminal history, she was completely blind to standard police protocol, watching other cops escort suspects indoors while she stayed locked in the cruiser. She just figured the booking routine was way over her head. She assumed the long wait was standard issue. She guessed this was just typical cop business. That exact blind spot became his alleged playground. Beyond the raw physical control and metal restraints, he totally weaponized her ignorance of basic civil rights. She completely failed to spot the glaring danger, simply because she lacked any baseline for what legal police behavior actually looked like. The state attorneys labeled this horrifying imbalance in court a power dynamic. That exact terminology rings alarm bells here, as Nancy Guthrie's abductor forced her into a similarly helpless trap at 84, battling stiff joints and relying on daily pills. Her life-saving pacemaker abruptly severed its digital connection at 2:28 on that February 1st morning. That was undoubtedly the exact strike time. Ripped from home in sleepwear, stripped of footwear and crucial prescriptions, She fell prey to a predator who deeply analyzed her weaknesses, meticulously plotted every move, and hit her porch heavily equipped. He wore a disguise, packed heat, hauled a 25-liter bag, spotted the security lens, and actively tried killing the feed, while the disgraced deputy allegedly manipulated a helpless target inside his cruiser. Guthrie's phantom kidnapper preyed upon an 84-year-old grandmother's frailties right inside her personal sanctuary. Separate offenses on totally different levels, yet driven by the exact same dark machinery, spotting a victim's defenselessness and weaponizing it. When the deputy's bust hit the wire, the internet exploded instantly. Digital crowds instantly tied the dirty cop to the ongoing missing grandmother saga. Despite detectives having zero hard proof linking the two events, one user typed out, "This is going to totally derail the hunt for Nancy." Someone else suggested multiple insiders at the precinct were actively compromised. They begged the feds to step up. A third person asked, if a patrolman catches kidnapping charges, why should anyone trust this squad to solve the grandmother's disappearance cleanly? Random internet chatter means absolutely nothing in criminal court. We aren't pretending it does. But this viral outrage serves as a crucial cultural thermometer, perfectly measuring the absolute lack of faith citizens have in the lead investigators. That temperature check reveals a chilling reality. Public faith is dead. The corrupt cop's downfall didn't shatter that bond. It had already bled out for weeks through endless gaslighting, that massive staff rebellion, the fierce election ouster, and almost 2 solid months of chasing ghosts. The deputy's scandal didn't spark the paranoia. It just dumped gasoline on a fire that was already roaring. Loved ones issued an urgent plea on March 21st, exactly 5 days prior to the badge getting cuffed, begging for fresh eyes and stating that every minor clue matters infinitely. They begged locals to rack their brains for any weird encounters around those critical dates that might suddenly reveal a crucial breakthrough, showcasing a family refusing to surrender. Deeply convinced, some random witness holds the golden key to crack this nightmare open. Full stop? Right here is the incredibly dangerous pivot, where juicy police corruption threatens to completely bury the actual victim's human tragedy. We absolutely refuse to let the bureaucracy steal her spotlight. Strip away the broken precinct, the jailed patrolman, the staff mutiny, the untouched bounty, the threatening letters, and the agonizing forensic wait times. At the core sits an 84-year-old grandmother abducted in her nightgown, stripped of her footwear and her life-saving pills. Crimson stains covered the front steps of the sanctuary she called home for decades. Her rear exits were discovered, swung completely ajar. That heart monitor died at 2:28 in the morning sharp. Her famous daughter literally abandoned the 2026 Winter Games broadcast just to desperately hunt for her mom. She faced her co-anchor on live TV, discussing how to maintain hope while drowning in profound sorrow, confessing the crushing guilt that her own celebrity status painted a target on her mom, and discussing those chilling extortion letters her gut tells her are completely authentic. The anchor officially heads back to the studio on April 6th. She walks onto that set with zero closure, her beloved mother still missing in action. No culprit jailed, and absolute zero peace of mind. She returns purely because life demands it, yet she dives right back into a sprawling, messy probe that remains wide open and utterly paralyzed after almost 2 solid months of hiding the bad guy's identity. Let's break down the exact status of this manhunt right now. No fluff, just cold hard facts. Nancy vanished without a trace on February 1st, 2026. Her son-in-law safely delivered her to that Catalina Foothills residence around 9:45 p.m. on January 31st. He is officially cleared. Detectives completely exonerated the entire bloodline. The sheriff went on record stating these relatives have been wonderfully helpful, incredibly polite, and are the true survivors of this horrific ordeal. Drops of blood on her porch were a perfect genetic match. Bureau Director Kash Patel dropped that chilling doorbell video on February 10th, exposing a masked, heavily armed intruder staking out her doorstep in the pre-dawn hours of February 1st. And this guy was fully aware he was being recorded. The suspect actively attempted to disable the device. Strapped to his shoulders was a 25-liter Ozark trail pack, an item carried only by Walmart stores. So detectives immediately hit up local branches to pull their security tapes. Corporate complied by turning over months of transaction history. Meanwhile, agents flooded the victim's block to scrub residential tapes spanning back to January 1st. Zooming in closely on the 11th and the 24th, authorities suspect someone was aggressively scouting the perimeter during those specific windows. Private security lenses actually caught unidentified figures trespassing across her lawn multiple times before she was ultimately taken. Biological evidence from the porch yielded absolutely zero hits in the federal registry, With more swabs still sitting in the lab, detectives pivoted to genetic genealogy. Mirroring the exact playbook used to hunt down the Golden State Killer, they also had to juggle various extortion letters, mailed to newsrooms and dropped right on the Guthrie family's doorstep. Experts quickly flagged several of these communications as total hoaxes. During a televised sit-down with Hoda Kotb, Savannah Guthrie admitted her gut, tells her the pair of letters sent straight to their home are completely legitimate. By the middle of March, Sheriff Nanos went on record claiming his squad had nailed down the underlying reason for the strike, confirming this was a highly calculated hit, while keeping the actual reasoning under wraps. The commander delivered a chilling public advisory that froze the community in its tracks. Do not assume for a single second that you are shielded just because this horror struck the Guthries. Those are hardly the words of a commanding officer whose squad is rapidly wrapping up a neat and tidy case. It screams of deep-seated paranoia regarding exactly how wide this danger truly stretches. Meanwhile, the massive $1 million bounty posted by the relatives sits totally untouched. An extra $12,500 from 88 Crime and Crime Stoppers is likewise sitting there uncollected, with absolutely zero suspects booked, indicted, or even publicly identified. We are still staring at a complete blank wall. So how exactly does busting Reynolds impact the broader tactical situation? Here is the absolute truth of the matter. Not a single piece of hard evidence ties him directly to the abduction, yet throwing him in handcuffs violently rocks an agency that is already buckling under extreme public scrutiny. Internal crises completely devour a precinct's daily bandwidth, draining them of vital, legal, administrative, reputational, and tactical energy. Pima County brass are currently juggling a massive federal manhunt alongside the disastrous aftermath of a completely unanimous vote of no confidence. They are also fighting an aggressive movement to oust their top dog, all while firing and indicting one of their own badge holders for a terrifying abduction. Having federal agents riding shotgun right now goes way beyond being helpful. Their oversight might actually be the only thing holding this operation together. The Bureau brings bottomless funding, unlimited legal boundaries, and cutting-edge laboratory networks to the table. Most importantly, they are completely insulated from the toxic local politics plaguing the county sheriffs. Allowing them to hunt for clues without any bureaucratic distractions, the manhunt is pushing forward, with advanced DNA mapping in full swing as analysts continue tearing through local January security tapes and handling fresh civilian leads buried somewhere in those video files, hidden deep within the genetic markers. The suspect profiles, or the repressed memories of silent witnesses, lies the ultimate truth. Reach out to the Bureau directly at 1-800-CALL-FBI. If you hold a single puzzle piece regarding that pre-dawn raid on February 1st, 2026, or if you spotted someone lurking around the block or acting sketchy at her usual hangouts in the prior weeks, speak up. Pick up the phone today. Not tomorrow. Travis Reynolds officially faced the judge on March 27th to answer for a horrific abduction he supposedly pulled off right from his cruiser. And the justice system will ultimately deal with him. However, the absolute biggest mystery tearing through Tucson and capturing the entire nation's attention for almost 2 straight months hasn't reached the docket yet. Nancy Guthrie remains utterly vanished without a trace. The tangled web of this mystery gets tighter by the day. Every fresh leak completely rewrites the entire narrative we thought we knew. So keep it locked right here. Amy Reynolds, take it away. Mr. Reynolds, we are officially calling your initial arraignment to order. You stand before the bench today facing severe allegations of abduction. This constitutes a major felony violation. You hold the absolute right to keep your mouth shut, as any words spoken here can and will be weaponized against you in court. You are entitled to legal counsel, and I am formally designating one right now. Wait, are we using the state attorneys? Or how is this working? Well, we actually have not gotten the official paperwork back from the designated legal aid department yet. Let's just assign the state defense team for the duration of this specific session. I see you do have a lawyer beside you at the defense table for now. And our main goal today is hammering out your bail terms. I just finished reading through the preliminary charging documents. I have also scrutinized the background dossier from pretrial services, giving me a clear picture of any past criminal rap sheet. I cannot tell if that loud static is echoing from the holding cells or if somebody forgot to hit their mute button on the feed. Let's continue. The file also highlights your local community roots, detailing your current job status alongside the agency's official risk evaluations and suggested bail restrictions. Finally, I see the prosecution is pushing for a $50,000 bond. Does the prosecution wish to expand on this? Yes. Your Honor, we are seeking $50,000 along with strict pretrial monitoring should he walk free. The specific crime being leveled here is incredibly alarming, especially when you factor in the suspect's profession and the massive authority imbalance between him and the survivor. Red flags heavily suggest he has pulled this exact stunt in the past. The survivor insists he be barred from the lockup facility or the crime scene, completely disarmed, and slapped with a total restraining order as she is terrified. She is absolutely petrified of him due to the heavy badge he wore, the completely skewed control dynamic, and the serious threat of brutal payback. Consequently, we are demanding the steep financial penalty alongside intense supervision. As noted in the paperwork, we are enforcing a strict stay-away order. Thank you. And over to the defense table now. Much appreciated. Your Honor, we respectfully request standard supervised release, since my client has lived his entire life here in Arizona. He maintains a stable roof over his head and works a steady, full-time gig. The supposed survivor actually confirmed these details and seemingly volunteered to take on supervisory custody of my client if he gets bailed out. I can only assume that indicates she has zero issues with him walking free today. Wait, there seems to be a massive miscommunication here, because I seriously doubt that individual is the actual survivor. Right. I guess I completely crossed my wires on that one. My apologies to the court. However, allow me to pivot and highlight a few different arguments. Your Honor, my client boasts a completely spotless criminal record without a single felony or misdemeanor to his name, and he has never skipped a court date. He even secured a highly favorable 2 on the risk matrix and a 1 on the flight risk chart. Based on all of these solid factors, we are formally petitioning the bench to let him walk out of lockup today under standard supervision. I appreciate the arguments from both sides. Mr. Reynolds, I am officially slamming you with a $200,000 bail, payable strictly in cash or secured collateral. Listen closely, because gaining your freedom today means answering directly to pretrial supervision. You will undergo whatever tracking or counseling they mandate, while absolutely staying away from booze, narcotics, and any sort of weaponry. Should you currently own guns, hand them over to the authorities immediately. Furthermore, stay entirely away from the complaining witness and never go back to the scene of this dispute. Your initial proceedings are now set for the afternoon of April 6th at 1:30. Just keep in mind that this specific scheduling remains subject to potential modifications. Maintain constant communication with your lawyer and track your upcoming appearances meticulously. Otherwise, skipping a session will immediately trigger a new warrant. Are we perfectly clear on these terms? Mr. Reynolds, we are completely finished here. The story you've just encountered is more than breaking news. It is a powerful reminder of how fragile trust can be and how essential integrity is in positions of authority in every community. Law enforcement is meant to symbolize safety, protection, and justice. Yet when someone entrusted with that responsibility abuses their power, the damage extends far beyond a single act. It shakes public confidence, deepens fear, and leaves people questioning who they can truly rely on. This case highlights a painful truth: a badge does not guarantee character, but there is also an important lesson in accountability. The swift arrest, public exposure, and termination of the officer show that no one is above the law. Systems may not be perfect, but when they function as they should, wrongdoing is confronted, not hidden. For us, the takeaway is clear. Integrity is not defined by titles or uniforms, but by choices made when no one is watching. Whether in leadership or everyday life, we all carry a responsibility to act with honesty and respect for others. A just society depends not only on rules, but on the moral courage of individuals to uphold them.